You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Matt McGachy, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians. We talk all about their lives and music while sharing killer craft beers. If you've ever wanted to sneak backstage and share a beer with one of your favorite musicians, well, Vox and Hops is the podcast for you. This week on the podcast, I dropped a killer episode with Kelly Schaefer of Atheist. There is this episode and over 440 other ones to help you enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. So what are you waiting for? It's time to become a Vox and Hops head. Cheers!
What is up, good people? Welcome to this week's episode of the podcast. Thank you so much for hanging out. This episode is pretty unique. This one is interesting. I've never spoken to anyone that has a story like John from True Vintage Guitar. This is a very, very cool story, and I think it drives the point home that there is definitely more than one way to get into the music industry. I've never heard of anybody doing it quite like this, and I think you will be very inspired from his tale. And I really want to jump into all that, but before I do, I need to remind you that this is the last day, if you're listening to this podcast on the day it comes out, this is the last day you can enter the giveaway for the Rarest LVX. So go to tonemob.com/LVX for all the details. We're giving away 2 LVX delay pedals. These are super, super high-end pedals. They're really awesome. One of my favorites that has come out in recent memory. So please go to tonemob.com/LVX if you have not done that already. All the details will be right there. We're not collecting any information from marketing or emails or anything like that. So just go there, check it out, and you can figure out the ways you can enter. All right, without further ado, let's get into this episode with John from True Vintage Guitar. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast, the show about guitar stuff occasionally, sometimes. I'm your host, Blake Weiland, and with me today, I have John Shults, otherwise known as True Vintage Guitar, a man who has touched more vintage instruments than anyone I've probably ever talked to. I mean, it's something. It was one of the magic times where the algorithm actually did just bless me with one of your videos in my Explore feed, I think.
Awesome,
I was just like, oh, look at all this. This is the coolest thing. I got to talk to this guy. I got to see what the story is. So basically, from my perspective, you are just like an obsessive vintage dealer, but it looks like you kind of do it all by yourself versus having a storefront. It's hard to know exactly, having never talked to you before, but I just wanted to get you on.
You all
right, cool. I wanted to get you on and tell the story. How did this get started? Obviously, you started playing guitar pretty young, but like, how did all this unfold for you?
Yeah. I guess like just as a child, the coolest thing that ever existed was the guitar.
Sure.
Everything else cool too, but the coolest thing ever was the guitar, and to be able to play it and be expert at it that's the top of for me, that was everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like one of 6 kids, and and no one really in my family really cared as much about music as I did. I just had this kind of, thing that probably most of your listeners have, where it's just there and you have to go and do it.
Yes.
And so I just started playing guitar, and it never never showed that real virtuosic excellence that probably a lot of your listeners did and do at a younger age. But I just loved the thing as a tool, as an aesthetic, as I loved it for what it did. I also loved the music, but I didn't approach the guitar because it wasn't a means to an end. It was the end. That was it. It was the guitar,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, in some ways, I'm probably similar to a lot of the listeners in other ways. I'm probably not going to be as good of a musician or guitarist as a lot of folks that listen to this podcast. I'd love to be. It really wasn't the way that I was wired. Kind of the way that I was wired was just loved the thing. And then when I started seeing these old guitars, I was just like, wait a second, that that's the true, like that, those are the most interesting things I've ever seen. You know, I can't believe that exists, you know, whereas old cars, 50s and 60s cars get driven for 50,000 miles and then left out in a field, and then you take them and you strip them down and you rip off all the rust and, you know, paint it and everything. Guitars are different because they mostly lived under the bed when you're not playing. And so when I discovered, wow, like these old guitars can be mostly the way that they were in the 1950s. It felt like time travel. You know, when I picked up these like old guitars, it felt like I'm right back there in the 50s when the solid body electric guitar is this kind of newfangled counterculture, you know, thing that was being fleshed out, and you know, it was a thing that existed as far back as the 1930s, but it didn't exist in the form that was usable to a lot of musicians until 1950 or so. You know, with Fenders Broadcaster. So anyway, you know, I always looked at vintage guitars as maybe one day, you know, that midlife crisis, I'll be able to afford, you know, something like that, you know, a Duosonic, just anything really. I just wanted like an old Fender or an old Gibson. And really, I started out loving the acoustic guitars. That was kind of my primary passion, you know, when I was younger. So I went to college at the University of Alabama starting in 2007, 8, and just played for fun. And there was just a moment where a roommate of mine wanted a new guitar. He had like $1,200 or something, and he was like, "Oh, help me find a new guitar." I was like, "Oh, great! I love looking at guitars online, and like that's what I just do all the time. You know, sit on eBay for hours just looking through listings, and I just loved all of it. But you know, I was in school, I didn't have any money, and you know, I was working part-time as a janitor, and because my dad owned this commercial cleaning company, and so I was working for him a couple days a week, and that was more money than I could work elsewhere, and the hours were flexible, and I could still go to school and all that sort of thing. So anyway, my friend's like, you know, wants a new guitar, and so I start looking out there, and I find this like 72 Martin D28, and you know, to a guitar collector, not like a insanely collectible guitar, but to me, it was this vintage guitar that clearly was going to be better than any of the others, and it was just the coolest thing I ever thought of. And the guy wanted $1,200. I was like, "Here you go, look at this! Like, you can't get anything like this anywhere else." And I remember he looks at me and he's like, "Well, why would I want that?" And I just like, what do you mean? Why would you want that? Like, to me, that was the end all goal for everyone, right? Was to be playing like a real vintage guitar. And so that just wasn't his thing. And I was like, I just saw it and I was like, well, I think that's like a $1,500 or $1,800 guitar. This was back in 2009. You know, I'm thinking that's a $1,500 guitar. Like $1,200 is a good deal. And so I just thought I was going to buy it, and I was going to have it for a month or so, and then I was going to sell it. And, you know, because I just wasn't going to hold on to something long-term like that. It wasn't a smart financial decision at the time. And, you know, that wasn't where I was at. I needed that money for living coming up here soon. So,
right.
You know, I drove 3 hours, brought it back, and he gave me a deal when I got there for like $900.
Ooh, even better.
And I just loved it. And I was like, every time I played it, I just felt amazing. And it needed a neck reset, and it had worn out frets, but every time I played it, I was just so inspired to play. It drove me to play more music. You know, it wasn't better at making music as the other guitars. It was probably worse, but it still it made me want to play music more than I would if I didn't own it. So I had it for a couple months, and then I wanted to study abroad, and it was like, okay, well, you know, this guitar's got to go. So I listed on eBay, and it sold for $1,600. And after all that finished, and the guitar was delivered, the money was in my account. I looked around and I was like, what just happened? I now have more money than I just had before. How does this make any sense? You know, it blew me away. I couldn't figure out. It blew me away. So at that point, I was like, well, maybe I need to do this again. And, you know, because I always wanted a Gibson guitar. It was like, that Martin was great, but the Gibson J45 or the Southern Jumbos from the 1950s, those are even better than the 72 D28. And it just started going. It started
Was
going
it like
from there.
I can flip my way to getting one of these? Was that the thought?
Yeah, I could just buy and sell and own the things that I had always dreamed of, and not lose money. And that's not a bad financial decision if you're not losing money.
Right. Totally.
If you're making some money, that's everybody's. There's a lot of risk there that I kind of understood, but I just thought, this is it. So then it was that Southern Jumbo, and had that for a little while and sold that. And then it was a couple of tweed Fenders, and I didn't understand them, but I loved them. And I shocked the hell out of myself one time playing with a buddy.
I've been there.
Yeah, I think he had I think it was like a little collection of like a tweed champ and a tweed deluxe and maybe a tweed Princeton something. So I had his 90s Strat, and he had a microphone and a harmonica, and we were just like playing blues stuff, and he was showing me something on the fretboard as he's holding the microphone, and he touches the string on the Strat.
I did the same thing, except with my face on the microphone. So, my grandpa's old champ, or one of them. We, 2-prong cord, whatever, and we were using it at a full jam session with the full band, and it was mic'd up and everything, and I was like, yeah, this is great. And I leaned into the microphone and just, bam! Just,
oh, man.
It was like, I didn't understand. I should have. I knew what grounding was, but for some reason it didn't enter my brain at the time that could happen.
Do you still have that?
Yeah. Well, technically
Awesome.
My dad has that one now. My grandpa had two of those, and so I kept the one that needed the ground plug, needed the wire replaced anyway, since I was the one playing in bands and stuff. And so I kept that one, which is a 61. And then the one that still has the 2-prong cord is the 56. But my dad was just playing by himself with no mics, so it was a little less risky for him to hold on to that one.
There you go.
Yeah.
I've got two really clean tweed champs, and I love looking at them and owning them. And every time I play them, I'm like, you know what? My black panel 65 champ is just more fun to play than this.
Yeah, man.
You've got more range of like kind of, clean to edge of breakup all the way to breakup. But on the champ, you've got muddy breakup, And I don't know. I always kind of gravitate towards the black panel, like kind of mid 60s champs.
I don't know if they swapped the speaker out in them, because my understanding is the circuit's really, really similar, if not identical. But I know that the speaker was already replaced in this one, and I swapped it with a WGS that they had specifically made for those old champs, and it like fixed all the things I didn't like about it. It was like, oh, there we go.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to try that. It's like for my business. Basically, the way I like to sell things is exactly the way the manufacturer intended them. And so I don't often get the chance to experiment and make them sound the best that they can. I try to not take those decisions from the future owner. I want the future owner to be able to make those decisions for themselves. Try not to get too high on my own supply, so
it's there,
just lightly
there
buzzed.
in the name too, true vintage, right? And if this thing had not already been swapped, I probably wouldn't have done it. I probably would have left it.
There you go. Yeah.
It was hard.
I mean, it doesn't harm anything. It's just, putting a soldering iron to something that has not yet had a soldering iron to it feels bad to me sometimes.
I get it. That's why that other one still has a 2-prong cord.
There you go. Yeah. Anyway. So yeah, I just kind of started steamrolling, and I gave myself the opportunity to make those financial decisions that otherwise might not be the smartest things to do as a college student. Because I could make a little money on each one, and the more I did it, the more budget I had to kind of explore what was out there. So I went to school at the University of Alabama, and there wasn't any vintage stores. I mean, the closest vintage store was in Nashville, and I wasn't going to just drive there to sit in the store, so I just kind of had to explore it for myself and find out what was out there and let my just imagination and dream go. And so graduated 2011, got married. My wife and I moved to Nashville because I thought, well, I'm a shoe-in now that I've done a bunch of these vintage guitars. I'll be a shoe-in at Gibson or, at whatever. And, it was 2011. folks weren't hiring. There wasn't really, and they weren't hiring me for sure. And so we kind of got to the point where there weren't really the jobs we wanted, and so my dad was like, well, you can kind of do a managerial role at my company. So I needed money. I now was married and needed to make sure to stay financially solvent. But the other thing that my dad said was kind of in the throes of not having a job, having this degree and now no job, and not a ton of marketable skills at the time. I was like, well, I've got to stop buying vintage and selling vintage because it's just too risky. And, I can't let our family run out of money and I have to move back into my parents. And my dad was like, what are you talking about? You were doing really well at that. You clearly were good at it, and you were doing really well. You not only should you not stop, but you have to keep going. You have to keep going doing that, because that was just working. And he was right. That was just working. It was just my own anxiety that was saying, all right, you can have fun, but it's time to be serious, and so anyway, we moved back to Birmingham, and Birmingham, Alabama is where I'm from. And I was working for him for a couple of years, and just on every moment I had was eBay, Craigslist, Facebook, whatever was out there to look for, the vintage guitars I've always dreamed of. A few years in on that, about 2014, I had, 9 or 10, 40s and 50s Gibson flat tops, J45 Southern Jumbos, some Banner J45s. And I just loved that. That was my thing, for a while. I'd kind of gotten that, and it was just getting tougher, working at my dad's company, because he kind of needed different skills than I had, and it wasn't an industry I was really passionate about. So my wife was like, well, she's a teacher, a high school teacher. She's like, it's okay if, I'm keeping us afloat for a little while. So why don't you just go try this full time? I'd always wanted to, but I just was too afraid. I just never really knew what was the difference in what Walter Carter and George Gruen, these legends who had just built the industry from the ground up, and, Norm, and just all of those just legends that, clearly that was a real job. Obviously what they were doing, that was real, but what I was doing was just having fun, and can you really support a family on that kind of thing? I just didn't know. Wasn't sure, but we didn't have any kids. We lived in a cheap apartment. It just didn't really matter if I lost money for a while.
Right.
So, and so just with her kind of support, I was like, all right, I'm just going to do it. Just, burn all the boats. This is it. We're doing this until we kind of set ourselves a goal, a financial goal. Like, this business needs to do at least this well in the next year. And if it does, we'll keep going. If it doesn't, we'll figure it out then, and so that first year was really tough. I was trying to figure out how to start a business, trying to figure out, trying to gain the real skills to, that's one thing that's cool about the vintage guitar thing, is if you're a person who has a full-time job doing something that pays the bills, you've got some extra time and maybe some extra income to kind of dabble part-time, and you can do really well. So if you guys are excited about that, your listeners excited about vintage, go. Don't make any bad decisions. Don't outstrip your kind of financial position on something big, but because you can lose a lot. But, only buy what you've only dreamed of, what you've always loved. Don't buy something that just looks like a good deal that you don't love, because you're probably not going to know everything you need to know to do well on that. But if you love something and that's what you do, you like to sit on, Reverb or Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist and look at vintage guitars, you can go do that as part-time and have a blast and do really well. I recommend that you do that if that's what you love doing. Doing it as a business was different. For so many years, you go down you spend money, like before you can make money. And I knew that, but I didn't really know how to do it. So like right now, if you go to truevintageguitar.com and look at the inventory, there is a lot of very expensive guitars there. And that is totally different than what it was from 2014 to 2020 or 21. So I was doing the $1,000 to $10,000 guitars, and for the longest time, and I did not want to borrow any money because I just always had this fear of my having more money than skills and knowledge. That felt like a really dangerous place to be. Did not.
That's some good intuition, because what you were saying there is very sharp, because I've seen it multiple times in the gear industry at this part, like not with vintage reselling, but with other things where new brands have gotten injected with a bunch of capital for one reason or another, from one source or another, and they end up chewing through it so fast.
Wow.
Because they have all these ideas they want to try, and which is, great. But if you can bootstrap things, you're a little more cautious. You're a little more aware of what your resources actually are, and you can deploy them more effectively oftentimes than if you have a giant war chest, so to speak, that you can let's just try a bunch of things and see what happens. It can work. I'm not saying that doesn't work. It does, but I've also seen it not work. So
yeah, and that was what I was afraid of. I would rather do it slower and make it sustainable than have a big up and then a huge down. That was just, I was 25 when we started that, and we went full time, and so that was. I just knew that not only did I not want to borrow money, I probably couldn't have. I probably didn't have any credit. I didn't have any credit to borrow any money. And so I didn't. And, I'm so grateful to my wife, my partner, who just believed 100%, never faltered, just believed and was like, all right, go. So basically what that means is that we didn't pay ourselves for about 6 years. We rolled every dollar except for two things. We took some money out for a down payment for our house in 2016, and we had to buy a car at one point. And other than that, we rolled every single dollar back in, everything that we could. We did not spend it on making our life nicer or more comfortable or going on vacations or anything like that. It was, we knew that we had to get just a big pile of money together in order to be able to, protect our buyers. If I always do a 48-hour approval period, because I'm an online store. You live in New York or Los Angeles and you can't put your hands on this guitar. And so if you're paying $10, $20, $50, $100,000 for a vintage guitar, that's just a dangerous place to be in. If you just have to pay that money and then it shows at the door and that's it. I want people to be comfortable to be able to buy something. And so I have to be able to eat $100,000 return if that doesn't work out.
Yeah.
I don't want to. I'm going to make sure that the stuff done on my end is as good as it could possibly be, as transparent, and I want the customer to be as informed as possible, so that when or if they check out on a guitar they've always dreamed of, that it meets their expectations when they show up, because I know I'm gonna have to take that back if it doesn't. And so, in order to get the kind of depth and breadth of inventory that I knew we needed to have in order to actually support a family on this thing, we knew we needed to roll everything back in. And my wife was just 100%. She was like, yeah, absolutely. So, we had access to the money if we needed it, but, we were both totally okay with not making our life nicer until this thing, really got off the ground.
Well, that's how you build the foundations for things, right? That's
Yeah.
it, and it's an unfortunate truth that a lot of people don't want to hear when they have maybe a passion for something like this that they really want to get into. And my business partner Scott, I talk about him constantly on this podcast because he's the only person I talk to as much as my wife. But people ask him all the time, like, how did you start the string company? And it's like exactly what you just said, pouring every single thing back into it, and like bartending on the side and living with like 5 other dudes. And like, that's that's
I love that.
It's not fun, but it's the reality of, if you don't have a bunch of money, that's how you get these things off the ground. And then,
but it can also be fun. It can also be your dream, like it can
true.
Also be, I have this picture. I need to go find it. And it's of me, mostly my legs, in the back of my minivan in 2014. A few months after I went full time, I had just driven on a last second notice up to outside of Knoxville, Tennessee, in a trailer park. Was a 1956 Gibson Country Western.
Ooh.
And they had just listed it for sale, and I was so excited about it, and it was a good deal. And I just thought, it was like 7:00 at night, and I'm 5 hours drive away. And it was like, I am not going to let this get sold tomorrow morning because I'm going to buy it tonight. And so I was like, I can't risk it. I don't want to. And so I got in my minivan, which was 15 years old, with the seats taken out of it so I could put guitars and amps and move that stuff around. And I drove all the way to Knoxville, outside of Knoxville, Tennessee, and bought this guitar in the back of a trailer park. And then I drove to a gas station and picked up a drink and a snack. And then I got out the blanket that I had put in my car and the pillow and slept in the back of my minivan and was just like, I can't believe this is my job right now. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Yep. Because I had been in a different world for, a couple of years, and in an industry I wasn't passionate about. And so I'm sure that your business partner was extremely and is extremely passionate about that. And
yes. Yeah, we both are. It's it's a weird thing, but
and so it can be like, you're not living on top of the world from the outside looking in, but the inside looking out, you might be on top of the world. I kind of thought I was, I had just gotten a great score. I knew that, that I was going to be able to get it repaired for the right price and sell it for market value, to someone who had always dreamed to have it. And, that was it, I was like, this is incredible. And my buddy still has that guitar, so that's really cool.
Nice.
But I have that picture I took from just my legs in the back of the minivan at midnight, and because I just wanted to save that memory for later. It's no longer like that. Thank God. That was not sustainable.
Sure.
That was something you can do for a short time, but I would not be doing this if it was still that every single time. I think because that was a tough time. It must have been tougher for my spouse because, but she never showed that. She always believed. She just knew this was going to be a real thing. And so a few years go by, and I'd kind of started to build that, and I was playing at church in the church band, acoustic. And I always liked electric guitars, but I knew how to play an acoustic guitar. I didn't really know how to play an electric guitar, but the band needed an electric guitar player, and they said, "You want to give it a shot?" I said, "Absolutely." And so I scratched around on it best I could, and a buddy at church kind of showed me some tricks and some triads and notes on the fretboard, and here's what we do then and there, and I was like, what I'd always dreamed to do, just never really had. I just never really had the skills to start that on my own. I always needed to be kind of helped along by a band and someone that really knew what they were doing. But I always loved the guitar. And so now that I had these skills on electric guitar, the really first big solid body electric that came my way was, it was an early 65 Stratocaster in Olympic white.
Ooh, okay.
And I just never really loved Strats. I was just, okay, everyone plays a Strat. I didn't really get it. I just didn't get it. And then when I held
They're
held
not
that
my
one,
thing either. Don't tell
okay,
anyone.
I hear
Yeah,
you. They
yeah.
weren't mine for the longest time. But when I held that guitar, I was like, oh, this is why. You know, like it just did so many things differently than everything else. And it doesn't feel different now because it's so ubiquitous. But, you know, when I was playing, basically, Strats are lava, trying not to play them as much as I could, you know, and then played it, I was like, oh, you know, this is it. This is why. This is the in-between stuff. And this is the feel and the vibe and the, like, the shape of everything. You know, I think we look at them all day, every day. And we think, well, that's what a guitar is.
Yes.
It's the Strat or the Les Paul or, you know, or the Telly or whatever. But, you know, the Strat may be the most ubiquitous. Everybody
it's the one that's
it.
the guitar emoji, right? It's the Strat.
Yeah.
So.
Right. And so for me, it just felt like, well, I don't know. It didn't really stick out as something that was different and unique, and because everyone played it. And then when I kind of tried to play everything else and came back to the Strat, just because when the guy sent me pictures of it, even though it was a Strat, I was like, well, wait a second, no, I need to have that. I gotta have that. And so I think that one was in like North Carolina somewhere. You know, maybe a 7 or 8 hour drive, and you know, 5-figure guitar. And I was just like, no, I'm going out for this one. I'm going all in. And I'm so glad that I did, because it really just reoriented. You know, the Stratocaster really is an interesting, you know, the way that the Strats from 1954 until the 70s had a 3-position switch, not a 5-position switch.
Right.
Those in between positions didn't sound twangy to Leo, and you know, this is conjecture. I've never seen Leo written this down somewhere, but you know, he probably didn't even really want them to sound like that, because that wasn't that kind of twang sound he wanted. But when you do it, it's just like, whoa, and they're not out of phase. It kind of feels like out of phase. They're not out of phase actually, but anyway, the way the tremolo works and how Leo designed that bridge plate to float off the top, even though probably most of us play it decked. You know, it's meant to float, and when you do, the holes in the back plate line up with the holes in the sustain block and the tremolo piece. You know, like, whoa, you know, just everything felt so right and so good, and I just kind of started really falling headfirst for the solid body electrics from the 50s and 60s. And they were just so unattainable for the longest time that I didn't even really, you know, the Jag and the Jazzmaster was really as far into that world as I kind of got, you know, outside of the flat top acoustics, mostly Gibson flat tops. But when I did, I found a much more active market than on the flat tops side. And maybe that's just who I had.
No, I think that's pretty accurate. I mean, yeah. If you look at, you know, there's the most sold like guitars, period, vintage, new, whatever, like, are solid body electric guitars. It's just what it is. You know, doesn't matter which brand you look at. Yes, there are exceptions. Taylor is a massive company. Martin is a massive company, but them combined are nothing. Not nothing, but very small compared to all of the solid body brands that exist out there. So. Yeah,
and that's been my experience as well. Just because that was where my interests drove me, and then that was there when I got there. You know, like it wasn't that I really thought, wow, those are much more expensive than the flat tops, so I should go to there. It was just when I started learning more about it and being able to play it better and enjoy it more, and listen to more of that style of music than like fingerstyle blues is kind of what I really loved playing and listening to for a long time. You know, that just kind of changed a lot of things for me. And so that's kind of what I do primarily now, is 50s and 60s solid and semi-hollow electric guitars. So yeah, I found a much more active market there. It feels like me as a player, I personally own one flat top that does everything I need. I'm happy. My wife bought it for me. It's a 2013 Gibson J35. I remember when they came out, you know, me as a Gibson, you know, flat top guy, a vintage Gibson flat top guy, you know, the J35 predated the J45 from 1936, late 36, early 37 to 1942. And there's just, you know, 500 of those J35s. And, when they kind of started reissuing that guitar with the advanced jumbo style bracing and the Firestrike pickguard, everything just, it attracted me aesthetically. And I also just loved the way they sounded. And a quick side note, my friend worked at this music store in Birmingham called Bailey Brothers, and they got 5 of them in at once in 2012 or 13. In 2013, and this was like, I don't remember what month. It was a few months before Christmas, and he texted me. He's like, "Hey, we just got 5 of these in. Do you want to come in and play them?" And I was like, "Oh yes," So I just dropped everything, drove down to the store, and played all 5, and they were all great. But there was this one that had like kind of a lot of run out on the top, where the grain gets kind of twisty on that spruce and not exactly straight up and down, and kind of, you don't want a ton of run out. Basically, if you're building flat tops, run out's not a good thing. But this one had the tone, like this one just had that feel, the resonance. When I held it, I was like, I don't care about run out. I want this one, and I was just like, man, this is the one, He's like, all right, cool. Yeah, that one is awesome. And then on Christmas morning, it was there under the tree. My wife had bought it for me.
Nice.
So
that's awesome.
I had no idea that I was picking that out. And I'll remember that for the rest of my life. That's my flat top. So, yeah, I like the fact that I get to write the story of that guitar. I get to write it, because that was mine. And, that guitar will outlive me likely. And, whenever I croak, whoever gets that next, I hope you're stoked. And maybe you're listening to this podcast 50 years from now, 100 years from now, and getting excited for that. Some of those old Gibsons came with a thing that you could order from a lot of the dealers called a monoplaque truss rod cover, where it was this kind of funny. Most of them were gold, and they were kind of engraved with like music notes, and they would have like a personalized name in them. And I love finding those like 50s, 40s, 50s, 60s, Gibsons with the monoplaque truss rod covers, and they'll have the name of the original owner that definitely ordered that at the dealer when they bought that guitar. I love those. That someone bought that brand and is now making those again. So my mom asked me one year, what do I want for Christmas? It was a monoplaque truss rod cover with my name on it.
Nice.
So that's my flat top guitar. But I have a couple of solid bodies. So I feel like for a lot of players, you've got maybe I'm unique here, maybe not. I feel like I've got my flat top, but I've got to have variety in my solid bodies. I got to have that humbucker. I got to have that single coil. I got to have that hardtail.
Yeah.
Trim,
Yeah, I just got my first nice acoustic guitar. It was a gift also. And
awesome.
And I'm just like, it's kind of weird. I've been playing for a long time. And my dad has a lot of decent acoustics, couple really nice ones. But I was always the electric guy. I never was lusting after an acoustic in the same way. And so, and I got this, it's a 73 Gibson J160E. And, it's kind of like the perfect, I'm a pedal nerd. I love all this stuff. So it's kind of like the perfect thing. I didn't realize it at the time, but like those have a P90 in them. That's what the pickup is. I'm like, oh, this is brilliant. And it sounds great unplugged too, but I can run it through a bunch of weird reverb pedals and do my weird stuff that I do with it too. But yes, one acoustic and the rest is just thank you. The rest is just electrics.
Hi, I'm Vincent, and I'm here to talk about the Mercury X. My dad's always going on and on about how cool Maris is. He really went off on one about the Mercury X the other day. He said something about a 4,800 hertz sample rate and 99 preset locations and 33 banks, and something along the lines of the most advanced reverb pedal ever devised by man? That's all true, but I only care about one thing. This pedal sounds sick. So make sure you check out the Mercury X and all the other fine products at maris.us, as well as fine retailers worldwide. All right, Dad, now can I have my Pocky?
how exactly do artists get their music on Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, Tidal, all these services? How in the world do you get your music there? Well, in the past, you had to use something called a record label. But these days, you can use DistroKid. DistroKid is the absolute easiest way to get your music up on streaming services, and it's the most affordable way to do so. Not only do plans start at $22.99 for the entire year, that's less than $2 a month, DistroKid also does not take a cut of your streaming revenue, unlike some other services out there. Even better if you sign up by going to tonemob.com/distrokid. That's tonemob.com/distrokid. One more time, that's tonemob.com/distrokid. You'll get 30% off. That's right, 30% off their already extremely reasonable prices. So go to tonemob.com/distrokid and get your music out there.
Yeah, and so I think the market kind of reflects that, right? You're selling one flat top to a player, and that player's like, all right, I'm good. When I need to play, acoustic, I got mine, and I don't need a 16-inch wide with spruce top and a 14-inch wide with mahogany top. I mean, you just kind of end up with what you end up with, and then you're pretty much set.
Yep.
So, that's maybe the prevailing. I'm sure that a bunch of your listeners are upset. Like, no, I have 5 different flat tops, and I've got my Collings, and I've got my Martin, and I've got my Gibson, and that's awesome. It's just that the way I gravitated to was one flat top, 5 electrics. And so kind of when I got that bug for the solid body electrics in like kind of 16, 17, 18. That was where everything shifted towards in the kind of my vintage business was I'm sourcing all of that stuff because I think it's a really good thing for people who want to go and do this for themselves or just part-time, just for fun, maybe for a full-time business, but still you've got to buy what you love and what you sit on eBay looking at for 10 hours a day and lose track of time or, Facebook Marketplace, because you'll just know everything about it and you'll know all the, pitfalls or like things to look out for. And, don't buy something because you think it might be a good deal, even if you don't really care about it. Buy it because you just like love it and you're going to do great. So, because even if you lose money on that, you got so much value in that experience and owning that which you've always dreamed. So, so that's kind of I tried to let that guide me, and that's the stuff that is the best. Now, the other side of that is that I've got to let go of the best stuff that I get. Like you got to sell it, or you're losing. I don't want to ask my family to be like, hey, I need to own this 58 gold top full time, and it only cost us 6 figures, so it's cool, right?
It's fine. No, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
I think I'm so lucky to just be in this every day and get to experience the stuff that I always dreamed of that I don't feel like I need to own it forever to, I think that if I have a constant stream of exciting stuff coming in, I don't need to own things forever because these things need to be played, and I can't play 10 guitars at once. I can play only one. So, I think it's so exciting to me every time to connect someone who, inherited a guitar and, a high-end guitar that's difficult to sell to be their highest offer and their easiest selling opportunity, where I show up at the door, I then send a wire transfer for that money and they hand me their guitar. They don't have to worry about shipping a $50,000 guitar where there really isn't an insurance option there unless you've got a commercial policy. I have that, but a lot of those sellers those
individuals don't though.
Right. They don't have that. And they're tasked with selling something that is so specialized that it's just, I learn stuff brand new every day, and I'm coming up on my 10-year anniversary full time, so there's more to know that you can never know everything. And there's a lot of pitfalls selling a very expensive guitar. And so I love to be their highest offer. I love to be their easiest selling opportunity. And like that, everybody is better off by the work that I did there. If that's the case. Now, if I make a lowball offer and they don't shop around, that's not optimum. It's great for me to get a good deal, but I don't have to. What I'd rather be is their highest offer, and they walked away like, wow, I just got everything I wanted. He's going to mark it up and sell it, and he's going to make money, and that's fine. But I still got paid more than I would get paid anywhere else. I didn't have to ship it, or I didn't have to worry about a return,
or fix it, or whatever.
Yes, because I don't know how to fix it. I don't know why it's not doing. Half the time I show up to buy something very expensive. The pickups are dead. You cannot play it. And it's been modified, but this way and that way. And most of the people don't know it because they're not pro players, and they might not be players at all. And, this 58 Strat might look perfect on the outside, but when you plug it in to an amp, all 3 pickups might be dead. It's happened before. And that's fine. Dead pickups are a thing that just happen on pre-CBS Fenders, and if properly rewound, there is no negative impact on the guitar, in my opinion, if it's done properly. So anyway, if imagine that showed up at a end user's door, and they're like, well, the guitar's dead. So, they've now got to ship it twice uninsured. Anyway, yeah. So there is some pitfalls for selling high-end vintage guitars that having the skills to do it is quite helpful for. So anyway. That was when we kind of really started hitting our stride, was when we found the things that people really wanted to buy and the things that I was really excited about and knew everything about, knew as much as I could about, the pre-CBS Strats and Tellys and the Les Pauls, 50s Les Pauls, and all that kind of stuff. It just excited me to no end. And every time it happened, I just was giddy with excitement. Kind of what ended up happening, though, is what I figured out is that if you do have a very expensive vintage guitar, above $20,000, you probably don't want to ship if you're a private seller. And so if I want to be that seller's highest offer and their easiest selling opportunity, then I need to have all this pricing worked out to where if I promise them a number before I book a plane ticket, it's got to be the same number when I show up. So I need to know, based on these terrible cell phone pictures, is this guitar refin or not? Does it have a headstock repair? Are these PAFs gutted and now it's got whatever repros in there? I need to know that stuff before the flight gets booked. So because it's not their responsibility to pay me back for my $1,800 flight to wherever.
And how do you know that stuff based on grainy cell phone pictures? I know it's tough. If you're standing in front of it, it's a completely different story, right? Even I, not being a vintage expert, can tell some of that stuff. But I can only imagine just selling random things I've sold on Facebook Marketplace sometimes, or bought on Facebook Marketplace. It's like I try to do a really good job with photos and showing everybody like whatever the thing is. Just sold a grill. Like I've used this grill for 10 years. It's not in great shape. Here's all the things I know that's wrong with it, But not everybody does that. And I can only imagine, especially with something like the pickups, like have these PAFs been gutted or have they not? How do you get that information from a layperson? Or do you just look at what they have and go, and just gamble and just kind of roll the dice a little bit?
Yeah. Sometimes you get that spidey sense. Everything checks out here. This is looking really good. We've got all the hang tags and, not a single screw turned.
It's probably okay.
You're feeling good. But when you're dealing at that level of PAF pickups in a solid body 50s, get in a burst or something, you've got to be willing to spend the time and come home empty handed if you're wrong. But the more I do it, the fewer times I get surprised. So that's good. A lot of times, if we didn't know something, I can inform the seller, and sometimes they'll trust me on that, and sometimes they won't. Some people won't trust, even if the information is presented right in front of them and proven based on other pictures, because this guy has a profit motive, so I don't trust you, and that's fine. I can't fix that. That just is, So it's got to be okay. So you kind of average risk over multiple transactions. If you're just doing one, all your eggs in one basket, and that's not great. But if you're doing it back to back to back to back to back, not only do you gain that skills and knowledge and kind of expect where things might be wrong, you can kind of come to, based on prior failures, you can just start picking stuff out. So it really depends on what it is. Like, let's say it's a burst. Doesn't matter. Get on the plane.
Right.
Get on the plane right now. If you've got the means to buy and the price makes sense, and just get on the plane. I've been super lucky to buy three kind of original bursts, and you got to get on the plane. The first one was probably the most exciting one. It was the most exciting thing too, because when we say burst, we're talking, for those not in the vintage world, we're talking the Les Paul Standard. The one you think of. The one you think of was made from 58 to 60. There's about 1,500 of them, plus or minus. And that's it. That cherry sunburst, flame maple top with the center seam and 2 humbuckers, that Les Paul was only made from 58 to 60 in its original kind of version. The standard, that term wasn't really used until 56, but it was really called the model from its introduction from 52 until 56, 57, depending on where you look, price list or catalog or whatever. But, it was a gold top with P90s, started out with a trapeze, then the wrap tail 53 to late 55, then the Tune-o-matic. Tune-o-matic and P90s is my favorite variation because it's the most priced attractively for the quality of electric guitar you get. The wrap tail's amazing, but let's be honest, the Tune-o-matic's going to do you just a little bit better on the intonation and playability and that kind of stuff. And it's not that much more than a wrap tail. When you start getting humbuckers in 57, that price doubles instantly. At least doubles from the P90s. So the difference in that 56 with P90s and that 57 with PAF humbuckers is almost $100,000. It might be $100,000 just because they're humbuckers and not P90s. So, and then in 58, mid 58, you start getting the cherry sunburst and the center seam top on the maple, because underneath those gold tops is an offset seam. So even if you strip that gold off, it doesn't really look like a burst because the seam's on the side. But
which is why they did a solid color. That's
yeah. And it's also cool because it's proof that they used that maple cap for tone alone. That was it, not because it looked cool.
Right.
It was only because it sounded different with that maple cap.
Of course.
And then the Les Paul Custom is full mahogany front to back in the 50s. No maple cap. So anyway, I love that. They didn't care what the maple looked like underneath. They wanted it just for tone. So anyway, so then in 58 you start getting that cherry sunburst. You've already got the PAF humbuckers, and that variation was made until late 1960. At which point we get what we think of as the SG, but it was still called the Les Paul Standard until 63. And so there are only 1,500 of those cherry sunburst and PAF humbucker guitars made until they properly started reissuing them in the, I don't really know. My knowledge kind of tails off after about 1969. Yeah.
That's all right. There's a lot to know in between, 1950 and 1969. So.
Yeah, and so those guitars are minimum $300,000, just about those 58 to 60, and so it is important to know that stuff.
It's funny because I remember, and I sound old now, but it's like I remember when those things were $60,000, and that was just outrageous, and nobody thought they were going to go higher than that, and now it's absolutely bonkers. So
yeah, And I was always drawn to it because of everything, because of the way they sounded, they played, and they looked, because of the just whole thing around it. It was this cloak and dagger thing, and it was like an island that you can't get to if you want to operate that part as a business, unless you already know where it is. It's like you have to just be born there or something. I don't know. Like you can't get there. The first one the first one that I found that was what I call uncirculated, so had never been offered for sale on the secondary market, an unknown serial number. That's an uncirculated kind of guitar. The first one actually happened, I think it was 2013. The first one that I found.
Okay.
And that's an insane story, but basically I was searching hashtags on Instagram, hashtag Les Paul.
All right. Nice.
And I come across this one and I'm like, whoa, that's a really convincing reissue. Wow. Okay, it's a 1960 reissue with the reflector knobs and the double ring Clusons. Wait a second. Those Clusons are crumbled. It's like, that's something that happens on 50s Les Pauls, but I didn't think that reissues crumbled. I was like, who made this? This is awesome. Like, you can't play crumbled tuners, so that's kind of a bit far. And then I read the description. It's like, oh, this is my uncle's guitar. It's 30 years old or something like that. He just passed away. Love you, uncle, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, whoa, this person just inherited a real burst. I was
and
like,
they don't even know it because it's more than 30 years
like
old.
It seems like, they botched the year by like a decade or two.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember what they said, but, and these like terrible, 2013 Instagram was like, 60 pixels and, tiny little square. And so I screenshotted it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'm just saving this because I just wanted it on my phone. And I sent them a DM and I was like, hey, I've got some really interesting information for you on this guitar. Let's talk about it. Here's my phone number. This is a really special guitar. This is a really valuable guitar. And they deleted the post and blocked me.
Oh.
And I was like, whoa, what just happened? I was like, well, thank God for that screenshot. Am I right?
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, no kidding.
I still have the information, so then it took me so many years to actually get in touch with who owned it. It was in Canada, in this family of many siblings that were getting of the age where they're starting to pass away. And the uncle that had it, passed away in 2013. It then bounced to his sister. She passed away a few years later. Then bounced to her sister. She passed away a few years later. It went to another brother. And that brother gave it to his son. He got married. They moved to Arkansas.
Okay.
They moved to Oklahoma, somewhere like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's where the guitar ended up. And I had spent years trying to I told these people, I have information that you need. I'm not hiding. I'm not trying to steal your guitar. I'm trying to tell you what it is. And, you're going to need to know. You
want to know before somebody else says, oh, yeah, I'll give you $5,000 for it and walks away,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I knew they weren't going to sell it because they were like, we'll never sell this guitar, so you don't need to know what it is. And I was like, no, I know what it is. I'm good. I'm pretty sure I know what that is.
But you need to know what it is.
I just thought, why would you not have a phone call with me? I don't know. I didn't understand. I guess they were just private people and didn't understand why someone on the internet was really interested in talking with them about their guitar. They didn't understand.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, eventually 2019, I'm talking with this one cousin. And she was like, yeah, I remember back at the Christmas party, my cousin said he got it because it was his dad is where it ended up with, and he didn't want it. And they got married and they moved to Oklahoma this past year or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I finally reached out to that family. Took me a week, and then the wife of the son who inherited it finally messages me one day, and it's like, hey, yeah, we have that guitar. What would you like to know about it? It will never be sold. Doesn't matter.
That's fine.
And we'll probably mount it on the wall. And I'm like, okay. I'm not trying to buy it from you, but before you mount it on the wall, let's have a conversation. I imagine them just drilling it to the wall or something. I don't know. I was just like, that's great if you want to mount it to the wall. It is your guitar to do with whatever you please.
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk first. So she's like, okay, you want to FaceTime? I'm like, yeah, sure. So she pops up FaceTime, and there is a 1960 Les Paul Standard sitting on the railing of this little porch out in front of a mobile home. And I just almost melt down because this is the first time I've ever seen it outside of that tiny
screenshot.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just overwhelmed with like, this is a real burst. Now, the burst is the most faked and reproduced, like the most passed off as real when it's not a vintage guitar out there. So, but this story made so much sense, and I could just see these little features, and I was like, I'm not ready to plop down money, but like, I'm getting in the car because this is real. This has got to be it. So we talked for a moment, and she's asking questions, and she's like, well, what year do you think it was made? And I said, I'm pretty sure it was made in 1960 because of these features: double ring clusins, reflector knobs. I couldn't feel the neck shape because it was on, FaceTime. Sure. But I was like, if you turn it over, we can look at the serial number and, find out for sure. And it was 0 space 8,000 something. So that 0 prefix, is what we'd want for a 1960 burst. So I was like, yeah, 1960, that 0 prefix is what that means. And she's like, great, what's it worth? And I had just been told so many times that it would never be for sale that it kind of didn't matter what one number it was worth was, because it's never for sale. And I didn't really know. It was an island that you cannot get to unless you've already been there. I was like, this is a very valuable guitar. You would not want to mount this to the wall. You'd want to put this one in the case, go buy a reissue, mount that to the wall, and say it's the same one. But we don't want people walking past this guitar with it mounted on the wall. Like, it didn't make sense, So that was a mistake. I should have just said 300,000. I don't know what I should have said. I had never been there. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea what time it was. So we talked for a minute, and she's like, all right, cool. Well, and so I'm like, okay, well, so you've got crumbled tuners and a couple saddles missing. I've got those parts. I could just put 1 or 2 tuners on there. We're not modifying anything. It's just 2 screws, and like, it would be exact reproduction. It wouldn't change this guitar at all, but we could put 2 saddles in it and a tuner, and we could play this guitar and enjoy it. I'd like to just take some pictures and get to feel it and enjoy it for a minute, and then I'll drive home. Like, that's all that I was going to do. I thought maybe sometime years from now, I could help broker this thing or something, but obviously it's not for sale. They've just told me over and over, it doesn't matter how much it's worth. It will never be for sale, so many times, because they thought I was trying to buy it. I had never asked to buy it, I'd never asked. But they couldn't imagine why someone would be so interested just to drive to Oklahoma and back just to play this guitar,
No, I would. I just want to experience it. Yeah, I get it.
Your listeners really know why. Yeah. But yeah, it was the only opportunity I had ever had to actually feel and enjoy one that, I just never been bold enough to ask for one at a shop, and like, let me play your burst. I'm definitely not going to buy it, So I just thought, I can deliver some real value here. It will be good for my business to have this in the, in this lead in the line. And, maybe if they decide to sell, we can figure that out.
We are brought to you today by Sweetwater, specifically the Gear Exchange. You may have heard about this. This is a place where you can go to buy and sell your used gear. Maybe you got a pedal over there that's just kind of collecting dust. Maybe there's something you've been eyeing from the Sweetwater catalog. Well, right now is a great time to turn that unused gear into something you're actually going to use. Even better, if you sell on the Gear Exchange, you can keep 100% of the sale as long as you choose a Sweetwater gift card as your payout method. That is not too shabby, because let's be honest, most of this buying and selling we do is just to fund new gear purchases, and that is a great way to reach a wide variety of customers and keep 100% in your pocket, or rather on your pedal board. So go check out the Sweetwater Gear Exchange and turn that unused gear into something that's actually going to help you write that next huge riff.
Hello there. I'd like to introduce you to your new best friend, the Chase Bliss Audio Lossy. Lossy is a collaboration between Chase Bliss and Good Hertz. And it's meant to give you some control over those weird digital artifacts that come with very compressed audio. You're hearing it right now. All the changes that are taking place are strictly coming from my playing dynamics. I'm just interacting with the pedal and letting it do its thing. In some true stereo goodness. If you'd like some more details about Lossy, I'd invite you to head over to chaseblinssaudio.com. I think you're going to like what you find.
And so we get off the phone. 2 minutes later, she sends me a screenshot of Reverb, and it says, 350 grand or something. And she's like, "Oh, we didn't know it was this guitar." And I was like, "Yeah, I told you it is a very valuable guitar. Like, I'm not saying yours is 350 grand. This was like 2018 or 2019." And it was a late 60 with a crack in the top, and it wasn't in perfect condition. We didn't even really know if it was real. I was pretty sure it was real, but no one had inspected this thing. It was just, and so I wasn't going to say 350 grand or something because I didn't really know. And
it's really hard to price things like that over the phone. It just is. I mean, you can give a ballpark at best, but it can also fall outside of that. Like, what if you would have flipped it over and there's a bunch of holes drilled in the back, or like, whatever, like, who knows?
Maybe the PFs got it, or I don't know. Why does it have a big crack in the maple top? It was in between the control knobs, so it had obviously like flopped around the case and busted on the ground or something. I'm not sure, which is not something you can't come back from. I'm sure it's somewhere out there, and it's a fantastic guitar for somebody, and I hope they're very proud to own it. So we get back on the phone and we're talking, and I think she suspects me of trying to rob her of her guitar at that point. And anyway, 2 days later, it was for sale at Groon, and I got wrecked. Anyway, so once I kind of figured out, they do want to sell it, I started talking with a buyer because I didn't have any money, and I was just like, "Hey, let's broker this thing. I've got this lead." And it was at a time where burst prices were increasing pretty rapidly. So even my very experienced buyer, who already owned like 10, had undershot it pretty significantly. And so anyway, Groon gives them this big number, and rightfully so. Groon had sold a lot. That was not, that was proper. We were not even close at that point because they had been promised this money. And so anyway, the buyer I was working with was Joe Bonamassa, who everyone knows has a bunch of bursts, and we had just undershot it based on what we thought the condition was and stuff, and we didn't know how much color it was, we didn't know how much flame, we were just doing the best we can. Anyway, so a month later, Joe Bonamassa walks into Groon because we didn't know where it went. They just said bye. We don't want to talk to you anymore because you're a spammer or a scammer or something. I don't know. Anyway, so a month later, Joe walks into Groon, and one of the guys calls him over. "Hey, Joe, come check out this burst." And he walks over and he looks at it, and he sees these two people standing there that are clearly the family that owns it, and he goes, "Oh, you're John's friends," and they're like, have this look on their face. Anyway, so that was this pretty big turning moment for me, because it was clear that while I had the skills to do what I thought was the impossible, which was find an uncirculated burst, I did not have the skills to then do the second part. I didn't have the money. I didn't have the skills. I didn't have anything. I wasn't even close. But I had just danced around in the shallows around that island that is the burst world and seen it, and kind of thought, all right, we can keep working our way towards this, like this is real promise. And it kind of reoriented a lot of things for me. My approach to private owners, and my, how I wanted to do the business. It was such a devastating loss because it was that lead I had in my back pocket for so long.
A long
since
time.
2013 to 2018 or 19. I can't remember exactly when it was. I think it was like spring of 2019, maybe. It was the one that I knew was just going to come through just eventually. And it just, Grun sold it to someone who I'm sure owns it proudly now and paid a fair price for it and has a lot of equity in it now. But, it was just a devastating loss for me. Because I just thought, well, that was my one shot at the burst world. But it was kind of almost like, I had spent so many years pouring so much into trying to get this business into being a business and not a hobby. And it was almost like it kind of ripped from me what I thought was the dream, but what I kind of thought I was owed. Like I owe you guys owe me because I just, that guitar is worth so much more than the where you're living. Like you don't get to go buy a house or something. And it was like, that's not true. They didn't owe me anything. Mm-hmm. I muscled my way there to someone else's thing. And I was also not their highest level buyer. Right. So that kind of helps me reorient, recheck my, preconceived notions, my pride, my just everything, and it really helped. It was really hard. I was devastated. I just felt like giving up. It's like, what is all this? What is the point of all of this? Like what high-end guitars? Like what? Why should someone devote a career or a life to this? But it was just in there. It was just always in there, and it was the thing that I just had to do. So anyway, there's the devastating loss. The win happened in 2021 when I got a lead on another. Okay. And this one was a 58. It was in South Africa.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And this was 2021. So that was when deep COVID, the scary variant, was the one in South Africa, not the one here. Mm-hmm. That wasn't until later. And we had a baby in July of 2020.
Congratulations.
And, thank you. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, talk about reorienting life. I mean, that was, it was so good because we now have this guy we've always dreamed of, but little dude. But it also just helped reorient life and priorities and, what's really important. It's not a high-end vintage collectible guitar, but there can be awesome and, that kind of thing. So anyway, so we had a baby and there was a burst in South Africa and they reached out to two people. It was me and Grun.
Wow.
And, I think Grun had every right to that guitar and just for whatever reason, I ended up being the one they went with for who knows. It probably had a lot to do with right off the bat. I said, I will be booking a flight to come to you. And that's it. Mm-hmm. There's no shipping. There is no funny business. Whatever this price ends up being, I'm still booking a flight because I'm not going to pay any money. I'm not going to pay any money for a guitar I haven't touched. And you're not going to send me that guitar without any money. So I'm coming. I'm getting on the plane and I'm going. As long as the border will let me through, I'm going. And so that's what I did. I think Grun had a lot higher offer than I did initially, but for whatever reason, I think they were kind of expecting to have that shipped to them, which they had the kind of cred and track record and that would have been a safe selling scenario for that seller. But I think they liked the fact that I was willing to come. So we got the number on board. I called Joe back and was like, hey, you want a 58 burst? Because this is about to happen. And he said, absolutely, let's do this. So
nice.
So with a financial backer, and that was really the only ones I've ever done that with. For no other vintage guitar have I looked for outside funding because I didn't want to mess up with someone else's money. I knew with Joe, he had so much experience, and he was not going to send money without good proof either. So we just kind of could tag team this thing, and he could get a good deal on a great guitar, and I could have this as I could be at the island. So that's what we did. We flew over there, and it was this incredible guitar, flamed out, all the color, not all the color, it was lightly faded, but a lot of color. Those early kind of so the Cherry Sunburst, the first official ones are in like June of 58. First production ones are like kind of August, October, and this one was from then, where the yellow is actually quite bright yellow and the red is kind of bright red. The faded 58s happened a little bit later and into 59, because I've had two of these kind of early 58s ones, and both were just these flamed out monster tops and a bunch of color, which for the burst world, the value has a lot to do with amount of color left on the top and amount of figure in that maple. Which is kind of silly, but on the face of it. But when you hold two and you hold a plain top next to a monster flame top, it's like, whoa, that flame top really, really gets some attention, So it does feel different. And then also neck profile and different features. Those mid to late 60s are real slim necks, and those 58s are real fat. And the 59s are kind of in between, which is the sweet spot for a lot of people. But anyway, so my favorites are the super fat neck 58s. And so that was my first foray into the island. And it was being sold by a music store who family had walked in out of South Africa, because South Africa had a ton of money in the 50s and they did not have a guitar manufacturer. So they imported a bunch of Fenders, a bunch of Gibsons. There are bursts there. There's a bunch of stuff there. This was an originally sold in South Africa guitar. It had never left. It was a previously unrecorded serial number, and this family had inherited it. They walked in and sold to the music store, and so the music store was the one selling it. It had this weird, goofy plastic bridge on it, like they had taken off the Tune-O-Matic and put on this like pyramid looking saddles on this goofy
weird
plastic thing. But other than that, undisturbed solder, worn out original frets, no changed parts except for that bridge. It was awesome. It was awesome. All the flame, all the color, bunch of grime and dirt, been played to hell and back. It was just a dream, just an incredible dream. So to get to go there, so on the first day, I go into that music store, and I walk in like, all right, I'm here, and we check it out. I take all the pictures, the pickups and the cavities, and we're looking for tells on things that are, fakes and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just like, no, this is it. This is the real deal. So then, it was like 5 o'clock in South Africa, 9 o'clock in the morning in Birmingham, Alabama, where my wife was, because my bank said that you cannot send that wire transfer from South Africa. You have to be in a bank. You have to be at the branch with this amount.
It's a lot of money.
You have to be at you have to be at the branch. Like, we have to see you. We have to see your ID. We have to see your passport. And so I had set up an appointment, and my wife had taken off school that day, or that half day, to do this, because she's a high school teacher. And she's a signer. She's an owner on the business account. So she's the one that could send that wire transfer while I'm in South Africa. So, she walks in, and, the people at the branch were already on board, because I had already told them what's about to happen. I was like, I do not need any roadblocks here. If I call and say that she's ready to send that wire transfer, that's got to happen. So if there's any like red flags or paperwork or anything, we need to do that now before I leave for South Africa.
Like an extreme version of letting them you're going on vacation, and like, hey, if you see charges from South Africa, it's legit. I'm from South Africa.
Yeah, I'm actually going to be on the ground.
Yes, so make sure this is all taken care of before I get there, basically.
Yeah, well, I also thought, like, there's going to be some safeguards in place where, Nigerian prince wants this money because of, whatever, there was going to be something like that. And I was like, if there are those things, let's do those now, before the week before I left. anyway, so she spends, a bunch of time proving everything. And then they like approve the wire, and it's like a 45-minute pause where you can just pull it back if you change your mind. And she gets a phone call from like corporate, and she's on the phone for like 30 minutes, and they're like, "This is a scam. This is not real." And she's like, "No, it's real." They're trying to convince her not to send this wire.
Well, I get it from their perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like a scam.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's something so unreal that if you're outside of that world, even if you're inside that world, it sounds like a scam. So anyway, that wire got blasted off, and it was our guitar at that point. So
they're probably going like, these idiots. We've told them it's a scam, and they're going to do it anyway.
Yeah, they really do. This happened twice. The third one was in Norway, but anyway,
same idea though. Like they were, this is a scam. Don't do it.
Yeah, pretty much. He has to like just say it over and over. This is a real thing. So anyway, so then it's an international wire transfer. So that money just sits out there for 2 days. I don't know where, before it actually starts getting to their account. So then I hung out in South Africa with the folks from this music store who were just the greatest folks. They had me over for a barbecue. They, took me out to places, and just, we had a blast, and they were really great folks. And then it got ready for me to fly home a few days later. And I wake up to an email from KLM, and because I was connecting in the Netherlands, and they said, "Sorry, your flight's canceled, not rebooked. The Dutch government has canceled all incoming flights from South Africa. So,
whoa,
see ya."
Oh, jeez.
No refund.
Oops.
Just you're done. Just figure out something else, because we're not doing this flight. No one from South Africa is coming in for the foreseeable future. So I text that screenshot to Joe. I'm like, he was like, just book whatever you can get. Just get out as soon as possible. Book it today. Because I was technically not supposed to fly back till like the following day, I think. Mm-hmm. He was like, just get out with whatever you can. Just get out. Go wherever. Wherever you can go. And I was able to get a same-day flight connecting in Doha, Qatar, and then to Philadelphia. So I ended up leaving that day. And so the music store that I bought it from was in an old bank building. They had a vault. So they were storing that guitar in the vault. And they were like, "You can store it wherever you want. We recommend you leave it here until you're ready to leave." And then so I went to pick it up, and they're like, "All right, you're going to be fine. But if you pull up to a stoplight on your way to the airport and people start running at you, just go. Just blow through that stop sign. Just get out.
Just go? Like
you're probably going to be fine. Like this is probably not going to happen, but it has happened before. So if anyone runs out at you at a stoplight, just go." Just run red light,
okay then.
Get around the traffic. And I was like, "All right, cool. I mean, I was in Cape Town, South Africa. So that's like the Los Angeles of South Africa, which is a wealthy country, wealthiest country in the continent of Africa. And so, it was mostly a nice place, but like any other place, there's maybe places you don't want to hang out with a 6-figure guitar for very long.
Sure. Most cities, I think you probably don't want to do that.
Yeah. You kind of want some backup at that point. And no one really knows what it is, so it doesn't really matter. But anyway, so everything went super smooth after the initial canceled flight. I did not receive a refund, but whatever. So then I get on my flight. So there's a flight from Cape Town to Doha to Philadelphia. That one was the 14-hour flight, and it was on Qatar Airways, which is a super nice airline, state-owned airline. And I had like a whole section to myself. And so like that burst was in the overhead, and I was stretched out on the seats in coach, just, having the time of my life, thinking back to that moment in 2013 in the back of my minivan with a country western at midnight. thinking, whoa, this is very different. You know, but
That's
so that was
similar
kind of
in so many ways at the same time.
yeah, you know, I should have taken a picture of my jeans and legs and feet on the in the Qatar Airways flight with my pillow and my blanket and you know movies and all that kind of stuff. So that was the kind of first successful one. And then there was another one in Illinois, and it was an incredible story. It was purchased brand new through a Gibson teacher agent by parents for their daughter.
Okay.
When she was in like 8th grade. Like, I think it was maybe 61 or 62 when it sold, but the guitar was made in 1960, kind of early 1960. Flamed out, loads of color. Every single piece of paperwork that guitar came with was still in the case. I mean, it was unbelievable mint condition, as mint as I've ever seen.
Wow.
And you know, she calls me up and we're talking about it, and she's like, well, I don't really understand the serial number. It doesn't really make sense to me. She didn't really know when it was made, but she had gotten word that this was a very valuable guitar. You know, like she knew before she called what this was worth. I mean, not the exact dollar amount, but she did not call it to expect to sell for $5,000 or whatever. She knew this is a 6-figure guitar, which is great. You know, if someone offers me a burst for $5,000, I will probably plop down the credit card. So, and I will feel bad as I do, but I'm not going to turn it away. So anyway, you know, so she, you know, calls me. We're talking about the serial number, and it was just kind of stamped kind of funny, but I was able to help her read it out. 0 space 2049, I think was the serial number. I need to remember exact numbers there. Somewhere in the 2000 range. Mm-hmm. And, you know, so we ask her, you know, what price and everything. I threw out an initial offer, one I thought would get it done. You know, like not a low ball. Like I'm not lowballing the most perfect thing I've ever seen.
Right.
But it's also hard to know. It's really hard to price those things right off the bat. You know, like it can just be tough. Different people will sell the same guitar for different amounts of money a lot of times. And so anyway, when she heard my offer, which was higher than what I had paid for the other two, she was kind of like, oh, whatever. You know, and I was coming in thinking like, wait, what? You know, like, so anyway, it took a week to get me on board with the number I needed to be at. And because she was just, you know, which is great for a seller. If you've inherited a burst, you should call as many people as you can and take offers from all of them and let the person with the highest number come in and buy it. So that's what she was doing. Which is a nightmare for someone like me trying to buy something at any price. At any price, you know, sometimes if you have the means, you still can't really buy it because you might not be there at the right time, or you might not. You know, who knows?
You've got to. This is not something you're planning on sitting on either. So
right. I mean, I was working with you know, someone who was willing to fund that and be the end user. So I was basically brokering it, and I told her that, you know, I was like, I want to own this for a week or two. I want to get to hold on to this for a little bit. Mm-hmm. But you know, I knew that I was not the end user, and she knew that too. She knew that everyone was representing a buyer. You know, basically, is what was happening. And so she just took every offer she could. And so it kind of took every bit of skill I had gained to still be the person standing at the end. You know, it took knowing when to hold, knowing when to indicate you'd pay more and when you wouldn't, and just to be the person at the end of at the end of the line. You know, like, because you just kind of have to be there the day that they're ready and the moment that they're ready. Yep. You know, with something like that where the price can vary so much and it's so high, there's so many so many pitfalls. What if it's fake? You know, I mean, I don't know. It's the most fake guitar in the world. There are a lot of people out there who own bursts right now that might not be real. So anyway, you know, I was pretty sure I knew what I was looking at here. It's like, this is incredible. And so, you know, I knew that other dealers were going to look at it, and I just held because I knew, you know, she's not ready. She's not ready. She's not ready. Then when she was ready, I was like, here's what we can do. And she was like, all right, come on. So it was 10 hours away. Got in the car right then, showed up, and we were able to get that guitar. And that was right during the 2-week time period where Instagram had randomly shut down my account. I don't know if you were kind of following at that point, but I've been on Instagram since 2012, and it's been just so fun to like be able to, kind of be in that community of people that love all that stuff. It's like, not everything about social media is great, but one of the things that is great is that you can kind of, if you're weird, you can connect with other weird people.
That's right.
And, and get to talk and learn and share and get excited over the stuff that, you've always dreamed of. And, but something with their algorithm was weird in 2020. I guess it was late 2021. Yeah. That some kind of spam filter that they had going, auto bot thing, decided that my account was not real.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. I had never done any like buy followers or, anything weird like that. I had only just been a consistent user of the platform. I have never done anything that would make the algorithm think I was not real. So, all of a sudden one day my like screen starts flashing black and white, and then I get this notification that, your account has been disabled for impersonating someone, and bye. You can appeal this in 24 hours. Bye. So when I bought that burst, it was actually during that time period where they had shut down my account. I was worried for good. So I couldn't really post and share about it. But we figured out what happened. My friend Francesco, Cesco's Corner Guitars in Italy, just a great dealer of mostly vintage Fender guitars. It happened to him too, and so we kind of connected over this as two dealers, small dealers. Just one person whose business was greatly impacted with the fact that the algorithm decided we were fake for some reason.
Totally.
I was eventually able to kind of network my way with someone at Meta at the time who could open a ticket to get my account back. And I kind of helped Francesco get that too. It then happened again a week later, and that person was able to get it back. It then happened again another week later.
Jeez, man.
And I kind of thought on the third round, like, can we do some verification here or something? At that point, that was before you could pay to be verified. I thought, well, maybe they'll give me a verification, check here if the algorithm keeps deciding it's fake. But they must have fixed it somehow because it stopped doing that after that. But
right.
I was bummed that I couldn't post about one of the most special finds I'd ever had was that near mint with tags, uncirculated from its original owner, 1960 Les Paul Standard. She had all these pictures from her band that she was in.
Oh, wow.
In like 63. So it's her standing there, and there's another girl behind a drum set, and there's like another girl on an accordion or something, and it's her with this bright red, cherry red burst, and her Gibson amp in the background. Just dream type provenance. So I had like this picture of her with the guitar in 1963, and this picture of me and her with the guitar in 2021.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I mean that's the stuff that dreams are made of. That might have been a once in a lifetime kind of deal, because those original owners are kind of getting up there now. I think most of the people who got bursts in 58, 9, 60, 61, 2 were not in 8th grade.
Probably not.
Yeah. So she was great. And she kind of told me the story about that guitar, which was that she played it with pride for a couple of years in that band. And then, she got interested in boys and, got married, had a family, and, wasn't really playing in the band anymore. And she might pull it out every once in a while, but, that wasn't really what she really enjoyed doing later in life, was playing guitar. So, but she didn't need to sell it. So she just held on to it, and it was in her basement for all that time. And then a few weeks before she started making calls, her granddaughter decided it was time she wanted to learn to play guitar. She was about to go off to college, And, grandmother heard about that and said, well, I've got a guitar. Why don't you try on this one?
Mm-hmm.
So she hands her a mint 1960 Les Paul Standard with all the tags, flamed out, all the color. And she brings it to her boyfriend's house because she's like, boyfriend knows how to play guitar. And she pops open this mint purse. And the boyfriend is like, oh my God, what is happening right now? Where did you get this? The boyfriend tells him this is a $300,000 guitar, or whatever,
Yeah. It's a 6-figure guitar. Yeah.
You need to take this home and put this, they had no idea because they're not guitar collectors. They just had a guitar and loved it, didn't need to sell or want to sell because it was just like a nostalgic thing from their past. So can you imagine being the granddaughter? Or can you imagine being the boyfriend? Can you imagine being the grandmother finding out, I just let my granddaughter who doesn't know how to play guitar start to learn on a $300,000 to $400,000 guitar. I mean, it's incredible. Those stories will keep you going,
I mean, they happen though. I mean, to a substantially lesser degree, it somewhat happened to me a little bit.
Okay.
That Junior back there is a 55. And
nice.
That was my grandpa's, the one I was talking about before. He was watching Antiques Roadshow. This is like 2010, maybe.
Awesome.
2012. I can't, somewhere in that ballpark. And they pull one out. And I don't remember what it appraised for, but several $1,000s at the time. And he was like, he just looked over at my grandma and was like, I have one of those. I didn't even know he had one at the time. I knew he had played guitar. He was younger. Mostly he played piano growing up, but I knew he'd played guitar when he was, in the 60s and stuff. And awesome. He knew I played guitar. That's all I cared about at the time was playing guitar and music. And that never really changed, I guess. But he was like, hey, I got this Gibson Les Paul Jr. And I was like, you have a what? And same thing, crumbly tuners, and everything. And I was just like,
bridge posts.
Yep, definitely. And so I was like, well, let me just take this to our local shops that specialize in this stuff and get this thing fixed up so you can play it again. And so I did that, took it up, got it all dialed, and brought it back to him. And he was like, oh, how about you just hold on to it instead? And I was like, okay, Grandpa. Yeah, thanks, Granddad. My dad likes to give me grief for it. He's like, I got passed over.
Oh man.
Yeah. But yeah, that's
incredible.
That's my, everything's burning. Quick, grab the guitar, which I actually did have to do. Fortunately, nothing caught on fire, but we had some really gnarly fires here in 2020. And
wow.
That's the guitar I put in the truck. It's like, well,
wow.
Okay, this is what we're doing. But yeah,
that's the bug out one.
That's the bug out one. And then it's got the most story. But yeah, you've probably seen more Juniors than you can shake a stick at. But at this point,
I love them. Mm-hmm. I think they're fantastic. I've got two right now. One from 1954 and one from 57.
Mm-hmm.
The 54, actually, I think the guy I bought it from was in Portland. He was in the Pacific Northwest somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But he said he bought it from this old-time collector who had just had it forever. And he said the old-time collector got it out of New York somewhere. But when it came in, I opened up the case, and there was a music store sticker on the inside from when it was originally sold. Arts Music, Montgomery, Alabama.
Okay.
And I was like, what?
That's wild.
That's an hour away from where I live in Birmingham. So just a crazy, crazy story there. But yeah, I love the Junior. Did you have the bridge post bushings updated to the long bushings on yours?
Yep. Yeah, had to. It was just unplayable. They were all the way forward, leaning on the pickup cover. So it was like it was real bad. But actually, other than that, it was in great shape. It
awesome.
Really didn't need anything else. And fortunately, I didn't hear this story until later. Speaking of people like not knowing anything about this stuff, my grandpa had asked one of my dad's friend who was really into guitars at the time. he was like, I got this old Junior. I had no idea this conversation happened. I got this old Junior, but the finish is all messed up on it. It's all cracked and split. And he's like, I'm thinking about refinishing it. And fortunately, he had asked my dad's friend. My dad's friend was like, no, do not touch it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So yeah,
there's a lot of that, man. Like I've got an amplifier right now. It's from 46 or 47. It's a Fender Model 26 Deluxe. So the earliest version of the Fender Deluxe. And it's like a woody cabinet. So this one's maple with this red grill cloth and these like chrome strips on the front. You've probably seen them before. Like there's reissues of them and stuff. The originals are quite difficult to get. But I bought this one, and the cabinet just looked kind of funny, like someone had messed with the finish on the cabinet, because those are just exposed wood. They're not covered in any kind of covering. And there's this tag on it, and it looks like it was written 50 years ago. And on it says, this is a very rare early Fender amplifier. Do not refinish in like all caps. And so I left the little tag on there because I thought it was so funny. And I think it means that someone may have tried to do something at some point. It still has a lot of the finish on it, but it's just kind of ugly in some way. It says, do not refinish. It cracked me up.
That's hilarious.
Just made me laugh a lot.
I love it.
Well, hey, yeah, man, that's awesome that you have that story that a similar, maybe not exactly the same one as
not quite to that same scale, but it's in the ballpark, I suppose. Yeah. But yeah, we've been talking for a really long time. I'm really enjoying this conversation, and I do want to get some action over on Patreon. But I have a couple. Yeah. I'm going to add one question actually for you specifically that I've not really asked anybody else. I have a couple classic questions I like to wrap the episode up on before we slide over, and this time I'm going to add a third. So we'll have 3 more questions after this. But before I do that, I like to give the floor to the guests. You can shout out anybody you want to shout out. You can plug anything you want to plug. You can, say whatever you want to say. The floor is yours. You're talking to a couple thousand people right now.
Oh, man. Wow. On the spot. Who do I shout out? I mean, gosh, there's so many. I don't know where to start here. What do I want to say? Fill me in. Give me a prompt here.
Well, you shouted out Joe. You shouted out your wife. You talked about your dad.
Yes.
So like all that stuff's pretty important. Is there any upcoming guitars that you're really excited about, or is there any interesting things on the horizon for you? You want people to be checking out?
There's like so many people I'd love to shout out that I think have been great friends and helped me along the way. I didn't have like an official mentor. I really kind of wish that I had, but there really wasn't that out there. But I think that the person that really helped me a lot, kind of early days friendship, and was like just so knowledgeable and willing to share that, is a guy named Matt Kaler. He works at Gibson now. And maybe you're following on Instagram, Matt Kaler, Koehler. Just such a smart guy, so passionate and knowledgeable about all things guitar, especially Gibson, from vintage up to now. Just the guy that knows it all and is willing to share it, and then another friend that's no longer in the guitar industry. His name's Keith. He worked at that store down the street, Bailey Brothers. He's the guy that said, hey, come in and play these 5 Gibsons and tell me which one's the best.
Nice.
So, I definitely wouldn't have been able to start this without the support and the belief from my wife. She's always believed, even when I didn't. Always did, never doubted. So, couldn't do any of this without her.
Very nice. Very cool.
Yeah.
All right, we'll get into these final questions here. The first one, this is actually, I wanted to ask you this the whole time, but you had so many interesting stories. There wasn't a good place to pause.
Sorry,
for this question.
I was just like, hey.
No, I wanted to hear it. But as somebody who's, like you said, you're shipping the cream of the crop instruments to people. You go to pick a lot of them up, but they eventually get shipped at some point. And everybody, I actually have a guitar on the way today, everybody is nervous about shipping instruments, rightfully should.
Yeah.
So, and I wondered if you had any tips for the listeners if you're shipping a guitar.
Yeah.
Like, what have you've done it a lot. So how do you do it? What carriers do you like? Like, give us the whole lay of the land.
Yeah. So unfortunately, I think a lot of the tips that I might have might make more sense to people who ship guitars a lot, not to people who ship guitars every once in a while. That is just tough, man. That is just tough. And I hate it. I don't really know how to solve that problem easily. But if you do ship a lot of guitars, or are starting to ship a lot of guitars and haven't done that much, always do brand new packing material, brand new boxes. You can get from Uline, a brand new shipping box. You can get 10 of them, and they're worth buying. It's worth investing in proper packing materials. There's nothing worse than you got to ship a guitar today, and you're driving around town buying a used gross box that doesn't have any structural rigidity. And, when it shows up at your customer's door, they're like, this is ugly, and maybe it doesn't help protect that guitar very much. And you've got to get used backing material. It just looks like your box is filled with trash. On it, buy those 10 brand new boxes, spend that money, buy that big roll of what I use is it's 24-inch wide, like 125 feet. It's like $60 of bubble wrap, and that will get me through 2-3 guitars. And then I always pre-pack the inside of the case because I'm dealing with vintage guitars whose cases aren't really made for shipping. They kind of just are a place to put the guitar while you're not playing it. Like they're not built like modern day cases. You probably don't need to pre-pack a modern day case, or for many of the guitars that you deal with. A Gibson case, a Gibson inside a Gibson case is probably going to be just fine. But back then, on the 50s and 60s Fenders and the 50s and 60s Gibson solid bodies, those cases just do not fit well. And so the steps to pre-packing the inside of the case, I don't decrease the string tension on Fenders because that you can risk a back bow and they just don't really benefit from that. But on the Gibsons, I always do because of that mahogany neck, of course, and the direction of the grain. And then for the pre-packing, I buy this big roll of tissue paper. You can find it on like Uline or something like that. And you can use that tissue paper to just slowly kind of fill all the gaps. And it looks good and it holds that guitar in place. It's almost like making a temporary, properly fitting case out of that tissue paper. Okay. And on the tissue, with the tissue paper, you can use to pack that underneath the headstock and on top, such that it's not pushing it in either direction, up or down, but that when it falls flat, bam, instead of the weight of that headstock pushing down quickly and cracking it, that tissue paper is going to support it on both sides so that the whiplash doesn't get it. That's what will get you, the whiplash. It has gotten me once. It was rough.
Ouch. Ooh, hate that.
Brutal. Australia, I do not want to ship to you ever again. It is too difficult to get there and too expensive. Sorry, guys. But yeah, so that pre-packing is very important. If you do not have that tissue paper, get some old t-shirts or towels and just kind of fill the empty space inside the case. If you don't have or if you have a vintage guitar where the guitar just kind of flops around in that case, use that old t-shirts or towels. Don't use bubble wrap on nitro finish. It'll react with it. But yeah, that's kind of it. Then, if you just walk into a FedEx and say overnight this guitar, it's going to be really expensive. If you have an account, that price is already discounted like 50% or something. So like every single guitar that I ship goes priority overnight because I want someone to be able to pay on a Monday and be playing by Tuesday midday. I want that. I want to deliver that. But also because it gets handled a lot less than the ground. Just don't ship a guitar ground. Ship it air. Ground is for tires. Air is for shipping. Air is for stuff that's not tires. When those tires go rumbling down the the conveyor belts, it doesn't matter how careful your last mile driver is, because the tire is already bashed through the top of it. So anyway, if you can make an account at FedEx, even if you don't ship that often, you're going to do better. I've got some volume discounts because I just ship so much. But yeah, everything domestic goes priority overnight from my store, and everything international goes priority international. And so it's just quick, and everybody's better off. I love the excitement of when someone pays one day and is playing the next day, and they live all the way across the country. It's just awesome. Like, I think in a small shop like mine, where it's low volume, so 1 or 2 guitars a week, you can do that. If you're selling 20 guitars a week, it might be tougher. I'm not really sure. I've never done that, but that's where I like to be, is that high touch, high customer service, low volume. Right now, that's kind of where I'm at. So
makes sense.
Hopefully that's help. That's more help for maybe people who are looking to kind of do it more often than just one at a time. But yeah, that's the principles that I try to follow.
Beautiful. All right, final questions, and these are the classic ones that everybody gets. First one, and I'm very curious about your answer on this. What is your favorite Boss pedal?
Oh, I don't have a lot of Boss pedals.
Fair enough.
The one I do have is the CE2 Chorus.
Oh man, well that's a great one. I love the CE2. The CE2 is beautiful.
That's it. I haven't explored many Boss pedals. I love the Tube Screamer. Like the Ibanez Tube Screamer is kind of where I sit. And I haven't done a lot with Boss pedals, so I just need to. But I was listening to one of your previous episodes. Was it Joanna Gleason?
Gina
Gleason. And she said Metal Zone. I was like, awesome.
Yeah.
I've never even owned a Metal Zone. So I started going to listen like Baroness and stuff. I actually went to like my first kind of hardcore event show, anything. It's called Furnace Fest.
You were just at Furnace Fest? I wanted to go to so bad.
It was awesome. Actually, so I operated from the house until February of this past year is when I set up my first kind of brick and mortar. I'm in it right now. And so MXPX, the guy from MXPX, Tom, came by.
I love Tom. He's been on the podcast.
Oh, awesome. I need to go listen to that. It was super cool. And we just played through everything and talked gear. And he was like, man, I'd love to take this gold top out on the road, but I don't know if you've looked at my Junior lately. It's
I remember when he got that Junior. It wasn't new, but new to him. And it didn't look like that at the time.
Yeah. I think it's fantastic. I love it. I love seeing that stuff get used for working purposes in all different types of scenarios. Like I don't gravitate towards MXPX and like Norma Jean. That was one show that we saw.
I love Norma Jean. Yeah.
I was standing there like, what is happening? Like I was looking at the pit. I was like, man, I'd really love to see that, but not that close. Like I like the bones in my face. I like the bones in my feet, and we're going to keep them right where they are for the best I can.
Sure.
But
fair enough.
I was like, I want to see that closer, because we were all in the back.
Another former podcast guest. So like,
awesome.
Yes, all things are connected together. Yeah.
And, we're standing there, and my buddy's like, man, that sounds like they're conjuring the gates of hell. And the guy turns around, he's like, that's a Christian band. And we're like, oh, well, I mean the gates of heaven, Just because that's not the background that I really came from or knew much about. I loved every minute of being at Furnace Fest. It was awesome. I was really going. I want to see Tom, and MXPX, and I did listen to Reliant K in the early 2000s, and so the Friday night set was Reliant K, Anne Boleyn, and then MXPX, and we showed up for the end of Norma Jean, and it was just awesome. I loved every minute of it. I was like, this is not really the style of music that I sit there and listen to, better believe I'm going to be listening to that come Monday when I'm getting some work done, and I'm going to be going Norma Jean, Reliant K. I didn't like love every minute of Anne Boleyn, but I just love being at a live show. I was like, and then MXPX, I just loved it, and I remember standing there, and we were pretty close to the center at MXPX, and there's this guy standing 2 people away from me with this 12-month-old infant, strapped to his chest and like headphones. And I'm like, hey, I got kids. I'm all for the kids coming to shows, but you're like pretty close to the center of MXPX right now. And then he, like, as soon as I look back, who's the lead guy for MXPX?
Yeah. Mike.
Mike. Yeah. So he's like, all right, yeah, everyone in the center, spread out a little bit. We're going to do the circle pit. And I'm standing there next to this infant, like, whoa,
like, dude. Yeah.
And then, the song drops, and it felt like I was in a wave of water as everyone rushed towards the circle pit. And I'm looking back and being like, there's a baby.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
I'm with you. I'm like always. I'm down to take kids to shows, and I take my kids to shows, and I love being in the mosh pit. Loved it forever. But I'm not putting my kid in there. Like, yeah, it's dangerous. It is. Yeah. There's no way. Like, you gotta be. I mean, plus, obviously, like, there's the obvious hazards there, but also nobody's looking out for somebody. There, I saw some images. Not for a baby. Like, no one's expecting someone to have a baby, so you're like going to be fine pushing somebody in the chest or whatever, and like, oh, it's a baby. Like,
it's a 12-month-old.
Yeah, you need to go.
It's nearly an infant.
Yeah. Yeah, you're gonna have to get out of here.
But, as a parent, the parent instincts kicked in. Was like, protect this baby. Like, I'm like making my own pit to get people away from this baby. Anyway, so
yeah. Come on, Dad, get it together. You know what you're in for. Get your kid out of there.
Yeah. What was the question?
I don't remember. Oh, boss pedals. Anyway. All right. Final question. Here we go. What is your favorite kind of pizza?
I was listening to the end of Gina Gleason, and you asked that question, and I was like, he's going to ask me about barbecue. So I prepped my answer for barbecue. Can we do that?
I love barbecue, but you're going to have to answer the pizza question. I can't let you go.
Favorite pizza is the more stuff, the better.
Okay.
That's it.
That's it? You don't have a favorite pizzeria, thin crust, thick crust, local style, or anything like that? You just like, give me what you have.
Not really known for its pizza, but we do have we have like a James Beard Award pizza place like a block away.
Hey, that's good.
It's kind of funny when like James Beard Award pizza place, I don't know. The pizza's fantastic. But I just struggle to remember a time where I was eating pizza where I didn't love it. So, I guess I'm not that particular. I like it all. We do have a, Chicago deep dish style place here where the person's from Chicago and kind of brought that here, and it's excellent every time. But, I get that like once a year. And then, I love going to Manhattan because I have a friend that lives there and a friend that used to live there, and I just usually end up there on these guitar safaris. I end up like going through New York and just any street pizza place. I can't name you one because I just like trying new ones. I like going to be like, because it's all kind of similar but all the same or all different. I'm not that particular. I like it all. And if there's an option to have more stuff on it, more different ingredients, I'm gonna do that.
All right, fair enough. But since you prepped for barbecue, let's talk about barbecue. That's another passion.
Well, I mean, Alabama, I suppose it would be known for that more than anything, more than a lot of things. But my favorite is actually a small chain here, and it's called Full Moon Barbecue. They actually have a drive-through, which kind of blows me away. I didn't really think that would be the thing, but they basically my bar for like barbecue that's worth eating is if I walk in and I ask for sliced outside meat, don't look at me with a dumb face. You're a barbecue restaurant. Don't tell me you don't have that. that you're a barbecue restaurant, like, so when I walk into Full Moon and say I'd like sliced outside meat, the bark on the outside with the smoke ring and all that stuff. Of course.
Yeah.
They're going to give it to you. Love that place. I had this moment where I took my son there and I recorded a video of it because I thought it was so funny. And it was last year, so he's like 2, and we're sitting there eating, and I'd gotten a cookie, and he saw me get the cookie. He was really excited about the cookie, and so at the end of the meal, I like break it in half, and I'm standing there going to give him half, and he grabs both halves, and he's like, "Thank you," And he's sitting there with a cookie, and I'm recording. I'm like, "Oh, do you want to share one with Daddy?" He's like, "No,
no." As a matter of fact, I don't.
Just an awesome, funny, nostalgic moment at Full Moon. But I also have one that I don't like. It's called Rodney Scott's. I think it got kind of corporated. But when you walk in and ask for sliced outside meat, they're like, "We don't have that." I don't have time for that. There's not enough time in the day.
Rodney Scott's doesn't have... See, I've watched some documentaries on barbecue, and Rodney Scott's definitely pops up. But
yeah, well, they do whole hog style. I understand their reason. It's whole hog style. So they do whole hog, and then they just put everything in a pan, and then it sits there for a few days, and then you buy it. And that's the same way they do at the church barbecue and stuff, and that's great. It's always a good time, but just feel like that's a less refined way of doing things, So anyway, I think it's a very well-marketed barbecue restaurant, but in my opinion, not worth going to.
Oh, man. I shots fired. It's been on the list of barbecue places for me to go to, but maybe
give it a shot. I hope you have a very different experience.
Yeah. Well, now I'm not sure what to believe anymore. Maybe I've fallen for the hype. I think I have.
Yeah. I don't know, man.
Well, dude, thank you so much for hanging out. This has been a great episode, and we'll see what kind of trouble we can drum up on Patreon.
Man, thank you so much for having me. I am so thrilled that you would take an interest in what's going on over here and allow me to ramble on and tell those stories about failures and wins. And just thank you so much for having me. And thanks for the folks taking the time out of your day to listen to what's going on. It's a huge honor. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, everybody, for John, this is Blake. And as always, folks, good luck and good tones. Alrighty, folks, I hope you enjoyed that episode. We got into it on Patreon. I actually unboxed a guitar on Patreon, which is it was a little bit of an experiment, but it was an interesting one nonetheless. I talked to John quite a bit more, and yeah, we had a really, really fun time over there on Patreon. So if you would like to support the show for $5 a month, you get extra episodes beamed right to your ears every single week, and it really, really helps out a lot. And if you're listening today, the day this episode drops, October 2nd, 2023, and it is not midnight Pacific time yet, then you still have a chance to enter to win one of the Maris LVXs. So go to tonemob.com/LVX for all the details. Thank you to Maris, and thank you to everybody who's entered. This has been a lot of fun, and almost everyone, one exception, almost everyone got all the questions right, which was really, really cool to see. That means you guys were paying attention. So thank you all so much for all the support. It really means a lot to me, and I will talk to you again on the internet very, very soon. One last thing before we totally sign off here, I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately, and if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gunstreet as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gunstreet harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.
Hey, this is Scott from Fly on the Call. Each week I speak to a different musician, whether they're in an established band like Silverstein or the Wonder Years, or a band on the rise like Spanish Love Songs, Origami Angel, or Meet Me at the Altar. We discuss music and lyrics, the successes and challenges of being in a band, and more, as we get to the core of each artist. The show features musicians of diverse genres and backgrounds, so there's always a chance I'll be talking to your new favorite band. Listen and subscribe at soundtalentmedia.com.
Hey, this is Dewey Halpus, host of Peer Pleasure on the Sound Talent Media Podcast Network. Join me each week as I explore another long-form conversation with one of your favorite musicians, actors, comedians, or creatives. From Chino Moreno of the Deftones, John Gorley of Portugal the Man, to Fat Mike from NoFX and Ian Mackay from Fugazi and Minor Threat, we go all over the map. From Fall Out Boy to Slayer, Peer Pleasure has it all. Check us out now on Sound Talent Media.